What's up everyone? Welcome back to another episode from my amazing food series. So today we're going to be talking about food that they used to call the peasant's cabbage. But today, we're all eating it. It's not just for peasants anymore, and we call it kale.
Now you gotta eat some kale.
So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Derek from Simnett Nutrition. I'm a holistic nutritionist, I'm a vegan athlete, also a YouTuber, and so many other things. And what I'm doing with this new series is I'm choosing a healthy plant-based food to highlight each week, where I'm gonna go in depth and teach you guys and myself all about the history, some cool fun facts about it, the nutritional content of that food, and then also some cooking and preparation techniques, and I'll always share an amazing recipe with you guys, and I have a banger for the end of this one. I know a lot of people out there don't like kale, but this one is gonna change your mind, I promise. And it's so simple and easy, you don't even have to cook it, but you're gonna think that you cooked it. Wait till the end to find out. So it was hard to track down the history of kale, and it wasn't really easy to find when humans first started to eat or cultivate it, but the earliest reports that I was able to find were from the ancient Greeks, and they used to cultivate it and then cook it by boiling it and then give it to people as a cure for drunkenness. So if people were too drunk, they'd be like, yo, boy, you gotta eat some kale, man.
You're drunk again.
I'm not drunk.
Dang it! Now you gotta eat this kale. You gotta get undrunk.
So what's neat about kale is that we have all these different types to choose from, and the reason being is because they were selectively bred for certain qualities, whether it be for taste, texture, or being able to withstand certain environments. So the Italians developed this one. This one is called Licinto kale, also sometimes called Tuscan kale, often referred to as Dino or dinosaur kale. So this kale can withstand the super hot temperatures that they have in Italy, and it's also really good at keeping its structure in soups, making this perfect for minestrone soup, which it's actually one of the classic and traditional ingredients in Italian minestrone soup. So there's two stories about how Dino kale got its name, and I couldn't really find the right answer, but it's either for its dinosaur skin-like bumps that they have on the leaves here, or because it resembles leaves from plants during the primordial times. Either way, it is probably my favorite kale. So this one here is called red kale, often called Russian kale or Russian red kale. And this one, no surprise, was developed by the Russians, and they produced a kale which could survive the really cold temperatures in Russia and also the snow. Today you can find kale in abundance on grocery store shelves, as I mentioned. Lots of different varieties, lots of colors, lots of different flavors and textures. However, before the 1980s, it wasn't really that way. Supermarket shelves barely had any kale at all, and if they did, it was just the one type of boring green kale. That was until an amazing man named Tim Peters, a farmer from Oregon, came along, and he said, I'm tired of seeing just this single type of boring green kale in the grocery store shelves, and I'm gonna do something about it. So what Tim did was he planted a bunch of regular old green kale plants along the sides of the roads near his house in the hopes that the bees would come along and cross-pollinate them with some other plants and weeds in the area. This guy loved bees so much, he was quoted saying, I love working with bees. They will do amazing things you have never dreamed of. So the bees went to work, and with the help of Tim the farmer, they actually did create some new varieties of kale, some colorful varieties, some red kale that he'd never seen before, and he got them into grocery stores, and that's when kale really started to take off, once there was some more variety and colors to choose from. So I think that checks history and cool facts off the list, so let's move into nutrition. Kale is a member of the cruciferous vegetable family, which also includes broccoli, Brussels sprouts, arugula, and collard greens, just to name a few. So kale is super easy to grow. We even grow it here in the summer in our gardens out here, and we actually have some tiny plants that are still kicking around from last year that I planted way too late in the season, and they've just been barely holding on for life, waiting for this spring, kind of like all of us. Kale is a highly nutritious green. It contains high levels of vitamins K, A, and C, calcium, magnesium, iron, lots of antioxidants, and also phytonutrients. Kale's calcium and iron are highly digestible because unlike many other leafy vegetables, including spinach, they have a very low oxalate content. Oxalates are naturally occurring compounds that are often found in plant foods that can bind to minerals like iron and calcium and inhibit their absorption. So the fact that these are low in oxalates and high in nutrients is definitely a bonus. Kale is also super high in lutein. Lutein is often referred to as the eye vitamin, and it's a nutrient that our body uses as an antioxidant, and it helps to prevent and support our body with eye-related conditions like macular degeneration and glaucoma. But it doesn't stop there. Kale is absolutely full of anti-cancer compounds that we call glucosinolates. These are sulfur-derived antioxidants that help our body deal with oxidative stress, helping to ward off conditions like cancer and other diseases. So you guys may be familiar with the one that is popular in broccoli called sulforaphane, and that is definitely in kale, but kale has tons of other ones in it. It has over 40 other glucosinolates that will help our body to ward off cancer and other oxidative stresses. However, you should know that the darker the kale, the more of these anti-cancer compounds are in it. So the Jacinto kale has up to 10 times more than some of the more like lighter broadleaf varieties, which I'll put a picture up here of those. But no matter what variety of kale you can find, definitely eat it because they are all so healthy. So there are often cautions with kale and other cruciferous vegetables that they are goitrogens. And it's not a total lie, however, it's not so much of an issue nowadays. So what a goitrogen is a compound that blocks your thyroid from uptaking iodine. So we know that our thyroid needs iodine, and if it doesn't get it, it will then stimulate a hormone to actually start growing that thyroid bigger so that it has more surface area to uptake more minerals, hopefully iodine. However, as you can imagine, if you have some iodine in your diet, this is not a problem at all. So unless you're eating absolutely massive amounts of kale and other cruciferous vegetables and not taking in any iodine, it should not be an issue at all. So definitely eat some sea vegetables, eat your kale, and you're gonna be fine. Because kale is so high in vitamin K, I should mention that it can have an effect on our blood's clotting. So vitamin K helps our blood to clot. So if we have any issues with blood clotting or we're on blood thinning medications, maybe talk to your doctor before you go ahead and start eating heads and heads of kale. But yeah, for the average person, the goiter issue, the blood clotting factor, not a problem. All right, so let's get into the different ways that you can cook kale and then the recipe that I have for you guys. So as you know, there's so many different ways that you can cook with kale. Of course, you can eat it raw, but that can be very hard to chew and it can be hard on the digestive tract since kale has such thick cell walls. You might wanna like cook it or break it down a little bit, which I'm gonna show you here in just a minute. But some of my favorite ways to have kale, of course, are blended into a smoothie or smoothie bowl in the morning. I often like to have it just sauteed on its own or just with like a little bit of garlic and maybe some soy sauce. Such a nice way to have kale. You can just throw it into a stir fry. You can throw it into soups like the Italians did with the minestrone soup. And you can even make kale chips out of them. So yeah, that's something I haven't done for a long time. If you guys want me to make some kale chips to show you how to do them, I have some amazing recipes. All right, so it's time to show you guys my favorite way to eat kale. So what I'm gonna show you today is a massaged kale salad with a tahini dressing. And yeah, it sounds kind of sexy, it sounds fancy, and it is both of those, but it's also really simple to make and you actually don't even have to cook it, but at the end, it's gonna seem like it's cooked because it makes it so nice and tender. Kale has a really thick cellulose wall, so we want to break down those fibers and make it easier for us to chew and also easier for our stomach to digest. First thing you want to do is get a bunch of kale and wash it. So we've got the kale all washed up here, and I'm gonna use all three different types here just to show you that it doesn't really matter what kind you use, it'll all turn out good, and I think it'll make like a nice salad with all three different sort of colors and textures and everything in there. So once you have them nice and clean, you wanna get a nice big bowl. So what you wanna do next is de-stem the kale into the bowl here. And how I do that is I just hold on to the stem at the thick end and then just pull it out like that, and then you're left with the nice tender kale leaves and the stem separately. So if you wanted to, you could save these, you could throw them into your smoothies or your stir fries if you want, or even soups or whatever. But yeah, there's no place for these in this dish right here. And it works with the Jacinto kale as well. Just grab it like that, boom. And then from here, you just want to break apart the really big leaves into smaller pieces. And you don't have to be too precise with this at all. All right, now here's where the massaging part comes in. You just gotta get your hands dirty and get in there and just start massaging the kale. It usually takes 2 to 3 minutes or so, and you'll see it start to like wilt down, and it'll start to release some of its liquids. If you want, the liquid is a little bit bitter, you can kind of squeeze that out separately if you want, but I like to take mine just to the point, this is really awkward, this angle. I like to take mine to the point where it's just starting to release its liquids and just starting to get soft, and then I add the dressing. So yeah, I'll do a little time lapse so you guys can see how this wilts down. So we're just about a minute in, and you can see if I move it, you can see that it's starting to release some of the liquid there at the bottom, and you can see how it's getting kind of shiny, starting to wilt down. All right, so you can see 2 minutes in, and the amount of volume that's there is like considerably less, and you can see it's definitely starting to look a little bit more like it's cooked. So I'm gonna go for another 35-40 seconds here. So that took about 3 minutes, and we're at this point now, and you can see if I squeeze it, it'll probably let go some of its liquid. And like I said, if you wanted, you could strain some of that off and it would be a bit less bitter, but there's also lots of nutrients in there, so I'm gonna leave them in. All right, so now that this is all finished, we just have to make the dressing and then put it on there, and it's all done. It's that easy. So you could put any of your favorite dressings on this salad now and it would be amazing. And you could take this as far as you want. You could put, you know, some sliced onion in there. You could chop up some pepper, grate some carrot would be really good in there as well. But I'm just gonna keep it as simple as possible today. So the dressing I'm gonna make is just 4 ingredients. I'll show you guys what we're putting in it. So this is like the most bare bones sauce or dressing that I possibly make, and you guys know my rules behind dressing and how to make it amazing. So you gotta have something sweet, you gotta have something salty, you gotta have something tangy, and then something to carry the flavors. So that's all we got here. This is like bare bones. So if you wanted to add to this, you could always put in some garlic powder, some onion powder, some other spices as well, and it would only be better. And if you guys didn't want to use maple syrup, you could omit the sweetness altogether, or you could always blend in Go. Come on. You could always blend up some dates with this dressing if you didn't want to use the maple syrup, or you could just throw some raisins right into this salad, and I'm sure that'd be really good as well. All right, so we'll start off with 2 big spoonfuls of tahini. Then we'll add a tablespoon or so of maple syrup. A few splashes of this Bragg's liquid soy seasoning. You could also use tamari or soy sauce as well. And then just a small splash of this apple cider vinegar from this massive container here. And then you just whisk it up. So there it is, all mixed up. And let me tell you, this sauce, it is so tasty. And like I said, you can get creative and add so many things to this to change the flavors. It goes a long way. So anyways, you guys can thank me for that later. So here is everything all mixed up, and this literally took like less than 5 minutes. It was so fast. You guys saw between like massaging the kale, whipping up that salad dressing, this took almost no time at all. It tastes so much better than it looks. I have to admit, it's not the most appetizing looking thing, but it's really, really good. And you can certainly dress it up, you know, with some like hemp seeds sprinkled on top or some sesame seeds or something like that. But I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. What a good way to eat kale. Like, it is so tender, it's so delicious, so healthy, and I'm definitely gonna get all this down. It's really, really easy to eat. Like you guys saw, this was like a mound of kale when we first started, and then once you wilt it down, put a little sauce on it, whoop, just shrinks down into almost nothing, and yeah, I'll definitely have no trouble eating this unless Crystal gets wind that I made this salad. She absolutely loves it. She'll probably be in here any second sniffing it out. So that concludes this episode of the Amazing Food Series, Kale. So I hope you guys learned something. I know I definitely did. And let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What food should I tackle next week? So definitely like the video if you can. It helps me out so much. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Then we can hang out again. Definitely leave your comments down below on what you thought of this video and this whole series that I'm doing. I think it's pretty fun. I had a lot of fun filming it, a lot of fun researching for it, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun eating it. See you guys soon with another video. See ya. Wish I have.
No, it should be like, yeah, it should be like that. Yeah. Okay, ready?
Yeah, we should just...
You're drunk again.
Oh, do I say anything? I'll just go, Okay.
Okay.
Okay, do it.
You're drunk again.